Just after 8 o'clock, good morning. Right now from the Boerne Star studio, it's the Boerne Brew, sponsored by the Boerne Star, right here on Boerne Radio 103.9 FM.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to this week's edition of the Boerne Brew here on Boerne Radio 103.9 FM and 1500 AM. And you can also listen on the Boerne Star website and Boerne Radio websites. I'm the host of today's show. My name is Kerry Barboza, and I'm the sports editor of the Boerne Star. And joining us on this week's Boerne Brew is a Hall of Famer, newly inducted into the Texas High School Basketball Coaches Association Hall of Fame. You know him, you love him, Stan Leech. Thank you for joining us on the show, Stan.
Thank you, Kerry. Good to be here.
How does that title feel? Is it settled in yet, or are you still processing everything, getting inducted into the Hall of Fame?
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was cool.
It's pretty cool. And, Kerry, we're glad that you were there, and we had a great group and felt the love, and it was everything that we were hoping it would be.
So the Texas Association Basketball Coaches, TABC, and they inducted you a couple weeks ago along with 7 others, including Greg Kite, who used to play for the Celtics. And I remember looking at the program, I think that can't be the same Greg Kite, and sure enough it was. I remember when he played with the 84-86 Celtics that won the championship, and he gave a great speech. But of the speeches that were given that night, which did you enjoy the most?
You know, that's a great question. I hadn't thought about, Danny Nix and I kind of grew up together. He visited Brownfield. His first cousin was there, and I spoke about him. And so I knew of him. Darren Scheermeyer I knew from coaching. And then, of course, knew Robin Gerlich because, not Robin,
San Antonio ties.
Yeah, because of San Antonio. So I knew half of them. And then Greg Kite, of course, because of the Celtics. Mm-hmm. It's a neat thing that they do. They honor 2 boys coaches, 2 girls coaches, 2 girl players, and 2 boy players. And it turns into a neat package.
Well, I know when Kite played, he was listed at 6'10". He's not 6'10" anymore.
No, he's not.
But I thought his story was neat. Him and his wife adopted 10 children. And like I said, he played on the 86, 84 Celtics teams, 86. He said this 86 team had 5 Hall of Famers.
Oh, I know it.
Yeah.
He rattled them off.
Yeah.
He was fun. Of course, I like Christy Gerlich. She did a good job.
Yeah, she was good.
They all were. I know Mark DeWall came up to me while we were taking pictures, Kerry, and said all the speeches were really good, and they all had different impacts, but they all had good testimonies.
Yeah, and Greg Kite mentioned that those guys on that 86 team, of course, Larry Bird was probably the most famous, but McHale Parrish, Bill Walton, Coach Casey Jones is in the Hall of Fame. He said they're all in the Hall of Fame, and for me to get in, I have to buy a ticket. So he was,
That's right.
Yeah, he was really funny. I thought he was self-deprecating, and I enjoyed your speech as well. So
thank you. I enjoyed doing it. I had an outline in my mind and followed it, and we had about 54 guests. And so I wanted to make sure and try to make them feel loved and appreciated because they were all part of our story. And I felt good that it went about the way I wanted it to.
It's Stan Leech, Boerne ISD Athletic Director, joining us here on the Boerne Brew. I'm the host, Kerry Barboza, with the Boerne Star. And Stan just got inducted into the TABC Hall of Fame. I thought you had the largest crowd there because of Boerne's proximity to San Antonio.
Absolutely.
Like I said, you had 5 tables, about 10 at every one. Like I said, 54, I think, was the final count. But what I appreciated about your speech was that you tried to recognize as many of the 50 as possible.
I did, didn't I?
You did. You went through a lot.
That was my goal. I knew I was going to leave some out, so that's why I had all my former coaches and former players stand up. I think I hit everybody.
Yeah. Well, you even gave me a shout out, and me and Russell Hawkins. So
absolutely,
we appreciate. I took Russell that night, so I appreciate that.
Well, I appreciate you taking him, and then Tyler Driscoll's doing some video stuff. So it was a special night, and just like I wrote a post, it's one that forever remember, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was, and so. Interesting. Greg Kite's winning an NBA title in 1986 with the Celtics. You're coming to Boerne. That was your first year with the Greyhounds. Right. You mentioned that one of the reasons that there weren't a lot of applicants was because Boerne had come in last place in the 3A district, and they were moving up to 4A. So you think maybe that kept some people away from applying for the job?
Oh, it did. I mean, it sounded like a funny a Hall of Fame speech story, but it's true. I was 25, and John Watchmuth hired me, and he had been my AD at Copper's Cove. And so the old adage, it's not what you know, but who you know, there's a reason why it's a cliche, because it's pretty true.
Well, and then you mentioned the next year, 87, the high school UIL allows the three-point shot. And it changed high school basketball. It changed it to a large degree, didn't it? Three-point shot.
It did. I mean, we were not going to be able to be real good or as good as we were without that three-point shot. Very fortunate, because that year Paul Heffernan was a junior and David Shivers was a sophomore that year. And the rest is history. We were pretty good from then on.
Well, then you mentioned in the speech that the Greyhounds led the state in three-point shots attempted and made. Do you remember what those numbers were at this point?
You know, I need to get that to you because we have the plaque. But, you know, a lot of people were hesitant even that first year.
Yeah.
But Paul and David, they'd been waiting for an excuse to be able to shoot. And they were great. We did a lot of things in transition. Basically, just because they didn't want the offense to set up, and in transition, they'd just pull up and knock it down. And some nights we were really good, and some nights we lived by the three and died by the three for sure.
I would imagine that, I don't know how many you made, like I said, you got to look it up, but I'd imagine that number was compared to nowadays, because I know the Greyhound girls, you know, they had 17 in the game, and, you know, I don't know how many they finished with a year, but I imagine that number, comparatively speaking, today, it's not even close.
Oh, it's not even close. I mean, that year was no record.
Yeah.
Because I remember if you made 5 as an individual, that was a big deal.
Yeah.
And I know Paul and David would have, and then 7 was like crazy.
It was like a record.
Right. Because coaches, even though you were getting 3 points, they still were hesitant to let people go.
Yeah, and then there were probably some schools with some big guys that didn't want the 3 because they wanted to feed the big guys in the paint.
Right. Well, and even for me, I remember in the early 2000s, I still was not allowing our 4s and 5s to shoot the 3. And the reason is because they weren't going to make any. And a lot of times they'd say, yeah, we're open. I said, well, yeah, you're open because they know that you're not going to make it. Yeah. That old adage, you know, parents always go, well, he shot because he was open. Well, he was open because they did a scouting report. And they knew he was shooting like under 20%. So there was only a few designated shooters in those days that had green lights, but now people start playing when they're 5 and they play all summer. And so their skills are there's more people with the skill to be able to knock down shots.
Yeah, even centers now. Some can shoot now.
They all can. Well, look at especially Coach Adamack's teams that everybody goes, oh, they don't have a big. Well, if he had a big, he wouldn't use them. So, I mean, they'd be outside shooting 3s.
So at the time when they allowed the three-point shot, because I guess the ABA had it, and then the NBA borrowed it from the ABA, and then it came down to high school. But at the time, did you realize how much the three-point line was going to change the game and help you as a coach?
Well, no. And, of course, everybody was hesitant because even the rims, we weren't playing with breakaway rims yet. And so now we're talking about the shot clock. Well, the way that we're talking about shot clock now is how, 40 years ago we were talking about the three-point shot. And we will all be fine. And I'm hoping that we get good news in June that 5A and 6A, and maybe even 4A, will have the shot clock in 26, 27.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question.
Yeah.
Was about the shot clock. I know the All-Star game that Amy Reedy coached in this past spring, they did have a shot clock, and they were going to send the results to UIL, and they were going to examine it and see how they thought. So I guess you would probably have to have a separate 24-second clock operator, right? You would have to have a separate shot clock operator,
yes.
maybe?
Yeah, Kerry, you and I need to go buy some shot clocks and start putting them in. Yes, you would. I think it's 35 seconds is what we're going to recommend. I have it in this paper that I wrote and sent to Ray Zapata, but I believe it's 35 seconds.
Football has it. We have the play clock, and there's somebody there, and they get 40 seconds, and they're running 70 yards down the field sometimes, and they're able to set up and run a play. So does high school need it? Do they need the shot clock? Is that something that's a necessity now in this day and age?
I think it would be good because they're doing it in all divisions in college. More than half of the states in the United States have the shot clock. Right now, I believe it's 29 have it. So it's a little over half. For Texas to continue to view themselves as ahead of the curve, we probably need to do it. I don't think it'll affect the game that much. And when you watch a game, they're putting the ball up inside 35 seconds anyway.
Yeah.
Very few teams.
Except the Kerrville coach.
Well, yeah. Brian would be in trouble.
Yeah.
He was brutal. However, he did use, there wasn't a shot clock. He didn't have as many good players as we did, so he knew that he needed to shorten the game, and he did a great job of doing it.
Yeah, he sure did. So that'd be interesting. So you think not this coming year, but the following year that it's likely to go in? That's
what I believe got the votes. And then the UIL has to think politically just like anybody else. And the 6A, 5As, and 4As are all for it. 3A, 2A, 1A is not. So I think they need to phase it in. Also, cost is,
right.
It does have a little factor.
You have to do the scoreboard. You have to redo a lot of things.
Right, and then just do high school only. They wouldn't do middle school.
Yeah, and back in the day, maybe in the 50s, 60s, there were games where the coaches would slow the game down. It'd be 20 to 15 type.
Oh, yeah.
There's not really that anymore. I think I've only seen a couple games. Well, of course, Brian at Kerrville did it every time. Those scores were like 32-30, but that's how he designed it to keep his team in the game. But it just seemed like nowadays, most teams don't do that. Most coaches don't do it. They may go into a spread, but eventually they're going to shoot it. And I think the only time I saw that when you coached was your former assistant who was at O'Connor. He was at I can't remember his name. He was at the ceremony, and he coached at O'Connor, and you were playing him in South San tournament. I guess he was afraid of you, so he slowed it down and just didn't.
Are you talking about Coach McConaughey?
Yeah.
Bruce, and then
Bruce.
He coached at Clemens, and then he
Clemens.
coached at Central Catholic was his last job. Yeah, we were together our first couple of years at Boerne. The reason why we need a shot clock is because of the new rules of you don't have the one-on-one. And that's why at the end of the game, they're able to slow the game down. You can't get the ball back.
Right.
Because when you had the one-on-one, well, you could foul and you made them make shots. Well, now it's 2 shots. And so that is the reason why basketball coaches think it's time, because of the new rule.
And I do like the new foul shots where it used to be 7.5, and then you would go to the double bonus. Now it's 4.25, and then the 5th one you start shooting. So it resets after every quarter. So to me, it makes it a smoother game, just less stoppage, I think.
It's made it quicker.
Yeah.
And there's no doubt about that. And that has been the reason why, and I guess the tipping point why a lot of people say it's time.
That is Stan Leech joining us here on the Boerne Brew. I'm Kerry Barboza, host of the show, and I'm the sports editor of the Boerne Star. And so, Hall of Fame induction a couple weeks ago. What's your best memory of that night? Is there any one thing, any one person that kind of stood out to you that night?
Well, getting to see all my friends.
Yeah.
My family was there, Courtney and her family, and nephews, and
grandson Jack.
Grandson Jack, of course. And I, of course, made my speech fit all those people and mention them without mentioning them. And then all of my people that were with us at the beginning. It's funny even though I'm finishing 39 this week and starting 40 at June the 1st, the things that you remember that are special to you are the people that were with you when you started. I was 25, and so do the math, 25 and next year's 40. And so David was a freshman. Robbie was in the 7th grade. Chris was a freshman. Bruce McConaughey was their freshman coach. Greg Ferguson was my assistant when we got second in state. Those people, and a lot of reasons why they're so special, we're basically the same age now. 10 years apart when you're 25 and 15, there's a gap. But when you're 65 and 55, you're buddies.
Yeah.
And and then Paul Heffernan and Dana, I just go through, and it's just a special night because we had special people with us and got to take a lot of pictures. And it was everything we had hoped for. And Gina did a good job of making sure that we were front row and center. She politicked real well with Bob Wall, so we appreciate that.
And I think he wanted to hire her, didn't he?
Oh, yeah, he did. Yeah, that was true because she did such a good job of organizing. And then, like you said, because we had home court advantage, we had the biggest crowd. I think we'd have had a big crowd no matter where we were. But it was a lot of fun.
That was a special night. And
thank you.
One thing that you mentioned in the speech was the upset of Port Arthur Lincoln. You called it one of the greatest upsets in UIL history. I don't know, Charlie Bogus agrees that he may think his is bigger, but
I don't care what Charlie thinks. Charlie, I saw that when he said that he was making faces, and his faces when I was talking bothered my daughter. I said, did you think he wasn't going to make faces? And so what happened in 90, ours truly was, there's no doubt it was one of the biggest upsets. He thinks the next year in 91 when they won, now that was a great game. I will tell him, now they went into 2 overtimes, and he's right. That was an awesome game. It's probably a better game.
Right.
My deal was...
Who did they play?
They played Pampa.
Okay.
Yeah. But... I think Charlie was kind of the favorite. My quote was, it was one of the biggest upsets, and it was. No one gave us a chance. Port Arthur Lincoln had not lost a game.
Number one in the state.
We're number one in the state. We weren't even in the top 20. We'd got second in our district. So, no, it's one of the biggest upsets, but, Charlie. Charlie, anything I say, if I said that's green, he'd say that's blue. Yeah. And so that's our friendship. And I wouldn't have been in the Hall of Fame without Charlie. Charlie and Chris and Jason Saunders, no matter what you accomplish, to get into halls or honors, you've got to have people that are speaking up for you. And Chris Adamak and Jason Sanders, and Charlie's chairman of the committee. And so Carla and I are very grateful to Charlie.
That game, the upset, that's been the only at the state tournament by a basketball team. You think of the boys have made it, I think, 3 times in the last however many years at Bernie High, and the girls have made it 3 or 4 years or whatever it was. None of them have been able to win a state semifinal game. You've been the only one to do it, so that's the greatest team in Bernie ISD history. What was it going into that game that you saw that you felt you could do and you were able to do? How were you able to beat them?
Well, Greg Ferguson, the assistant, it's harder to get film back in those days, and he was able to get a video from College Station who had played them the game before. And what we noticed, they couldn't shoot. And now outside,
deep, deep shots. Oh,
they were athletic. Basically, everything they created was off pressing and double the ball, and they were just so athletic. And inside, they had bigs. We believed that, we didn't have a choice. We weren't going to guard them anyway. And so, because they were so much more athletic. So we just packed it in, and we were real fortunate. They couldn't hit anything. And then David got his 4th foul in the second quarter, and Chris and Chad and Robbie were able to kind of extend the lead, and then we were able to hold it on till the 4th quarter when we put him in, and it was meant to be because now he's fresh. He had his legs under him. He hadn't had to play all those minutes, and so he literally took over that 4th quarter.
And did they panic at all? Did they try to force some stuff when they fell behind Lincoln?
Oh, they did. They panicked, and we should have won in regulation. They called a foul that wasn't a foul. The referees were doing everything in their power to give them a shot, and they called an over back on a last-second shot, and they went in and hit both shots. Can you imagine how emotional that was? The game was over, but it wasn't. He called a foul, us going on the back on a rebound that we didn't need. And they made both free throws. And so in overtime, Robbie hit 2 threes.
That was it, huh?
That's it, yep.
Well, that was a great memory for you.
Thank you.
How often do you think about that game? Do you think about it a lot?
A lot. Oh, yeah. I mean, there's a few games. It's Chris and I, when we play golf, we'll mention things about it. I mean, golly, I've just been the most popular world history teacher in Boerne High without that team in that game. So I'm very grateful to them in that game.
And you said it before, that game is kind of what kept you in Boerne for a long time. That kind of kept you around.
Oh, yeah. Well, and we kept coming. Then we had players move in, and we were able to develop players. Hagen Seth came in 95. McDowell came in 94. Then Adam Hawley was here in 98. About the time you thought it was going to be over, somebody'd move in, and we were very fortunate. But it started out because our first year we were 11-20, then 19-12, and we lost the last 5 games that year. Then we were 25-8, and then we were 28-8, and then we went on.
Yeah.
Shoot, 92, we were 29-4. We went on about a 20-year run there where we were averaging 25 to 26 wins a game.
Yeah, well, 833 wins. There's 832 other wins that helped you get in.
Oh, yeah.
Into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, but, that it's special because when people answer the question, what game you remember, well, that's not even hard.
Yeah.
The second one is also the next best question, and that was, you were there, Pflugerville, Hendrickson, at Tripping Springs.
Yes.
Because we had not got past the third round in like 9 years, and we were down 21-22, and I called timeout and said, guys, I'm going to give you one more chance. If not, we're going to let everybody play. And we went on a run, and we beat them, and then we went on to the regional tournament, beat South San, beat Brack, yep. And then had a great game with South Oak Cliff in the state semis that we had shots, and then they just went ahead in the end. But that's the second most special game.
Yeah, and I remember Sock, they had a 7-footer.
Oh, yeah. Oh, they were better.
He was going to LSU. They were pretty good.
They had not scouted Robert Moore, number 32, and Robert had a great first half and just had a great game. He was a very good high school basketball player. He was the greatest finisher I've ever known. If he got that ball, he loved to score. And if he got that ball inside, I've never seen anybody that finished as well as he did.
He was a fierce competitor.
He was a fierce competitor.
Yeah, he hated to lose, you could tell.
Yeah, thank goodness. Yeah.
Well, speaking of Hall of Fame, the Boerne ISD has a Hall of Honor, and I'm part of it. I'm on the board and part of the selection committee, and that's coming up, isn't it, for us? And we're going to have a ceremony in the fall, but we have to do the selection process coming up pretty soon.
Yeah, you're about to get an email probably when I get back to the office, but we're in that period where we need to make a decision. A lot of times, as you know, even in our distinguished alumni, we're a year ahead. When we present a class, we kind of have an idea who we're going to have the next year.
I would be asked, well, how come this group isn't in, or how come that group's not in? It's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when. You only allow so many per year, and so you just kind of wait your turn is basically what I would tell them.
Exactly, and that's the answer. And it's just like with the Texas High School Basketball Hall of Fame. There's a lot of, it's not if, it's when. And ours is too, because you only want to honor 3, 4 maybe, so that they feel honored and they can speak and you have a good routine, but you're not there, even the way we do it for an hour and then you honor for an hour and sometimes an hour and a half. It makes it special, but we've got such a neat place where really it's pretty easy. You had to be all state and you had to play in the Final Four as a team, and the community and the success we've had makes selecting pretty easy.
Yeah, and one of those in the Boerne ISD Hall of Honor is John Canvan. I was thinking about him because I believe it was 70 years ago this spring. He had that 67-point game, 1955, wasn't it?
You're right. It's when he graduated.
Yeah, 55, and he scored 67. It's a greater San Antonio area record. Express News doesn't know about it, so they don't recognize it. I think they give that East Central kid, Terrell, I think they give him the record at 63, but John has it at 67. And, we're talking about the three-point line a second ago. They didn't have a three-point line when John played. He was a big kid. He's about 6'8" or so, and he scored 67 in the 32-minute game, and that was against Northside, which is now Marshall. But I've talked to John about the game, and he's got the record. He doesn't seem to care that the Express News doesn't recognize it, but he does have the record.
I'm glad you said that because I'll make sure that's well known. John's a friend. Through all of this, we have become good friends. He even talks about it. He made layups and free throws.
Yeah.
So that's it. So how'd you make 6-7? I said, they threw the ball up, I caught the ball, I made layups, and if they fouled me, I made free throws. That was my game.
Yeah, and he was a big guy, and I don't think Marshall had a lot of height. I think they were guarding him with a 6-footer, so he kind of had his way, you know, in the paint.
And in those days, if you got touched, it was a foul. I mean, there was no rough play. 67, I've got the plaque so that everybody, and it's in the trophy case at Greyhound Gym. And the reason is that way no one ever forgets. And I've got his picture in that plaque.
Yeah, and he talked about it one time where I think he had 30 at halftime or 37. It was 30 or 37, and he said by that time they had a big lead, and usually the coach would pull him out and just kind of let him rest and save him up for the next game. But he told me, he said, I was feeling good. He said, I asked the coach, can I stay in? And he said, yeah, go ahead. So he scored either the 37 or the 30, the remainder, and he got that 67. So what a night for him.
Pretty cool.
Yeah,
and,
70 years ago. Hard to believe.
There you go.
Hard to
And
believe.
he still looks great.
Still real tall.
Still real tall. And
Yeah, stands straight up.
He holds himself. He's got good genes. Those Canvan genes are pretty good.
Yeah. Well, Stan, that about does it for us. We're going to have to wrap it up. But again, congratulations on the Hall of Fame, and congratulations on everything, your career for almost 40 years in Boerne now. And I loved what you said. They're going to have to drag you away from this spot, aren't they?
Oh, yeah. Everybody goes, when you retire, I'm what you call a lifer.
Yeah.
I said, one day if y'all driving Evansburgers at the Rock House, you know why. Don't even ask. I'm not going anywhere.
All right. Well, thank you, Stan, for joining us on the Boerne Brew. We'll talk to you next time.